Hey everyone, my name is Melanie. Welcome to Furniture Recreated. This is the nightstand I will be working on. I just refinished this just a couple months ago. And as you can see here, something happened to the paint color. What I think happened was it's actually the top coat. I'm not quite sure why, but I believe that's what happened. So we're going to refinish it. My niece is collaborating with me on this project because this nightstand is for her. She would like the top drawer to be taken out and a cubby to take its place. So that's what we're going to work on first. Now you see there's a ledge there that I am using to glue my paneling down, and really it depends on what you want to do with that space, where you make your pencil marks. I am going to make it so that I can put trim in the front, and you'll see that in a minute. This paneling is on the thinner side. Because I had a lot of it, I wanted to try this first. This paneling has two sides, and the back side is where you want to cut. Now, I forgot on the first one, but what happens is with the jigsaw, it tends to pull up the wood and makes that. So if you turn it over, then you have a really nice front side. Now, since I'm painting this and sanding it down and all that, it probably isn't going to make a difference, but it's a good habit to get into. Now you can see here, I'm realizing that no, this isn't going to work. There's no support underneath, so I need thicker paneling like I put on top there. So now I'm going to measure for that and use the paneling for the sides. And I've got a little nook on the top there on the side, on the inside of the nightstand. So I'm going to cut out a little notch. The first one I cut there was a little bit too big. So I'm making it quite a bit smaller because I really, the paneling doesn't go up that far, and it doesn't need to because nobody's going to be sticking their head in there. It has to look nice and feel nice, but the paneling on the sides doesn't have to go all the way up to the top. So that's going to work. And now I need to work on that base. And I've got one piece, so I need to add a second piece. So I'm going to measure again on that front platform, and I'm going just at the back of the trim so that I have room for another piece of trim on the front. Now these heavier pieces seem to go in pretty nicely, but one thing you need to do is make sure that all pieces that you are adding to that space fit together. Now I put the paneling on one side, but I'm not sure I put the paneling on the second side because that smaller piece, I have a little trouble getting that to fit. So you'll see that in just a minute. Whenever I'm reconfiguring a space that's already been finished, I need to think about how I want to refinish it, because it's important when you're adding new wood that you find a way to trim it out to make it look finished again. I've got some trim here that I can cut with a utility knife so easily. I love that little trick. And that trim is going to go right in front, and you'll see that in a few minutes. My niece would like me to paint this entire piece, so I don't have to worry about sanding off all of the existing paint. But I do need to make sure I sand off all the appliques. But what's happening now is it's making these big giant blotches. So in order to paint this properly so I don't have any bleed through, I'm going to use a primer first. I don't always use primer, but there are certain times when I feel I need to use it, and this is one of those times. Now you can see that those blotches are not going to go away easily. I'm going to put 2 coats of BIN Zinsser or bin, then I will paint on top of that. I'm sanding back those panels because I'm going to be painting the inside of the cubby, and my niece would like me to use a blue, and she sent me some swatches so I could get an idea of what kind of blue she would like. Now I'm using a base of colors I already mixed in the blue category, and I'm adding Liberty Blue, which is a brighter blue, and I'm also adding Midnight Blue, which is a darker blue. Here are the swatches, and it looks like I've come close. I'm going to add some more paint because I want to make sure I have enough. I don't want to have to go back and then try and match what I've already put down. There's the Liberty Blue again. You can see how bright it is, and there's the Midnight Blue, which is much darker. Both very pretty colors, and mixed together, whew, that is one pretty color. And I took a picture of it and sent it to my niece, and she approved. Once that primer dries, and it takes a little bit of time, not very much, you want to sand it back before you add another coat, because that makes it nice and smooth, and then you get a nice smooth surface after you add the second coat. And you can see those little blotches are still showing through, but I think 2 coats of primer will be enough, and then I can add the Fusion Mineral Paint. I added some trim the last time I did this piece, and I left it natural, but now I'm going to be painting it, and there's some gaps in between the trim, and I just don't think it will look very nice when it's painted white. So I need to fill those in, just being careful that I don't get the wood filler on the areas that I don't want it to be, because it's a little harder to sand when you have that kind of trim. I need to paint all of the panels, so I'm going to do that first, and then I'm going to go back and paint the rest of the piece so these little panels have time to dry before I put them in place. And while I am painting with the blue, I might as well paint the area that's inside the cubby that needs to be painted. Now that includes the back of the cubby. Of course, you got to clean that out really good before you do that. And I'm going to paint the sides a little bit too before I put those panels in place. My niece wants me to use white, and Picket Fence is probably the most authentic white that you can find from Fusion Mineral. And it's very pretty. It almost has a tinge of blue in it because it's so bright. It makes the piece look really fresh and clean. This is a good time to let you know that I'm an affiliate of Amazon, so if you click on any of the links in my description box that are connected to Amazon, I will get credit for those. Now it's time to install the panels and get my cubby completely finished. That second panel there was a little difficult to get in place. The one thing that I forgot to do was put the side panels in and then make sure that everything fit. It fits right now, but I don't have that side panel in. So when I do put that side panel in, it becomes a problem. So I'm going to glue everything in place, and then of course I will discover that that second piece isn't going to fit with that side panel. But that's okay, because I can redo the panel and make sure it fits the second time around. So I'm going to do that in just a second. Thankfully, I still had some extra paneling to pull from, so I'm cutting the length the same as the last panel because the last panel was fine when it came to the length. It was the width that was a bit of a problem. It was just a little too wide and it wasn't exactly straight. The second time around, I did get it to fit nice and snug. I painted it and then I glued it in place. After I added the trim, it was very noticeable that there were some big gaps. There was the gap from the two panels bumping up next to the trim, and there was also a gap between the two panels on the base. So what I needed to do is come up with a solution. How am I going to fill in those gaps and make it look like it's all one piece? It appears that I have a choice to make now. In the meantime, I needed to clamp down that trim because sometimes the trim can bow and the clamps will keep it nice and flat. While that dries, I can use my finishing pad on the drawer and add the knob that goes on the drawer. Isn't that cute? Of course, there's always touch-ups that need to be done because in the process of painting, I can be quite messy. But in the end, I always make sure I clean up my mess. A moment ago, I mentioned that I was going to have a choice to make. That choice is wood filler or caulk. I chose wood filler because when you use caulk, you have to open up a giant tube. And when you open up a giant tube for a small space, you end up wasting most of the tube. After this first coat of paint, I'm going to have to go back and sand again because sometimes the wood filler pops through. And you sand that with 220 sandpaper, and then you can come back and put on a second coat. This is what it looks like after one sanding and one coat of paint. I need to sand some more. I'm using a small piece of sandpaper and I'm using 220 grit because you want it to be nice and smooth when you're finished, so when you put on that second coat, it's really gonna look nice. Any dark spaces you have, I recommend using the flashlight on your phone or any flashlight just to make sure you're not missing something in the process. It's always fun to add stencils on the drawer, just adds a little extra something, and this is what I chose. Sent it to my niece to make sure that it was okay, and she loved it. I also added a little blue on top of the white just to give it a little bit more of a dimension. If you would like more information about how to apply a stencil, I have a couple of videos that you can refer to, and I will put links to those in the description box below. Thank you for being here. Good luck on your next project, and I will see you next time.
You can do it.
Whispers in the morning, whispers wakes me up. I can hear your words dear, whispers that you're mine. I don't need anyone to tell me that you're not, 'cause when you whisper to me, darling, I can't get enough.
Hey, thanks for watching my video. You can find more videos like this one on my YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed yet, please take a moment and do that now. You're helping me out a whole lot and it doesn't cost you a thing. Thanks.